Welcome to Unit 1, Limits. Calculus is the study of derivatives and integrals, and to properly define and understand both derivatives and integrals, we need to use the idea of a limit. Okay. So 1.1, Introduction to Limits. Here is we have a function f of x. We don't know what f of x is. But we know that when x is 5, f of x is 11. When x is 5.5, f of x is 13. When f of x is 5.8, when x is 5.8, f of x is 12.2. When x gets closer and closer and closer to 6, so when x is 5.9, 5.99, 5.999, f of x seems to get closer and closer to a number. F of x is 12.05, 12.003, 12.00018. So f of x seems to get closer and closer, and we use the word approach in math when we get closer to a number. So what do you think is the value of f of x at x equals 6? I'll give you a second to take a guess. Yeah. Well, a reasonable, that means it makes sense, estimate, that means guess, is that f of 6 equals 12. Why? Because f of x approaches. Approaches means gets closer and closer to 12 as x approaches 6. Okay. We can write, so the idea that as x gets closer to 6, f of 6 gets closer to 12, we can write it this way. We can write lim on top, x, an arrow, 6, because x is approaching 6. F of x is equal to 12. The way we would read it is the limit of f of x as x approaches 6 is equal to 12. So that's how we would read this. The limit as x approaches 6 of f of x is equal to 12. Okay. Let's practice this one. What is a reasonable estimate of f of 10? As x gets closer and closer to f of 10, x gets closer and closer to 10, f of x looks like 2, 6.5, 6.93, 6.97, 6.993, 6.99954. Well, it seems like I would say 7 because f of x is approaching 7. To write this using limit notation, I would write lim x approaches 10, f of x equals 7. How would we read this? We will read this as the limit of f of x as x approaches 10 is equal to 7. Okay. Next, here's a graph of function f of x. What is the limit as x approaches 0 of f of x? Well, when x approaches 0, we see that from both sides, f of x is approaching negative 5. So I'll just say the limit is negative 5. Okay, next. What is f of negative 4? Well, if we look at the function, f of negative 4 has to equal to 4 because of the point right here. We know that when f is when x is negative 4, f of x is negative 4. Next, what is the limit of f of x as x approaches negative 4? Well, even though f of negative 4 is 4, the function is actually approaching a different number from both sides. From both sides, f of x is approaching 7. So the limit is actually 7. So what did we learn? The limit of f of x is the value f of x is approaching. So even if f of, say, 3 equals 5, well, actually, I should say, even if f of negative 4 equals 4, if f of x is approaching, getting closer to 7, as x approaches negative 4 from both sides, then the limit is 7, not 4. The limit is what we're approaching, not the actual value. Okay? Left-hand and right-hand limits. So here's another graph of f of x. This time, from the left-hand side, if we trace from the left, the graph is approaching 1 when x approaches 4 from the left-hand side. We say that the left-hand limit as f of x, the left-hand limit of f of x as x approaches 4 from the left is equal to 1. Meanwhile, from the right-hand side, it's different. From the right-hand side, the function is approaching 5. So we say that the right-hand limit of f of x as x approaches 4 must be equal to 5. The way we write left-hand limit is by putting the minus next to the 4. The way we write the right-hand limit is by putting the positive sign. If the left-hand limit, which is 1, is different from the right-hand limit, then we say that the limit of f of x as x approaches 4 is undefined or does not exist. So in order for the limit to exist, for us to have a number for that limit, the left-hand limit and the right-hand limit must be equal. Okay. So, new graph. Does the limit of f of x as x approaches 7 exist? Well, from the right-hand side, we approach negative 5. From the left-hand side, we approach negative 5. So yes, f of x approaches negative 5 as x approaches 7 from both the right-hand and the left-hand sides. Okay. Next, new graph. Does the limit of f of x as x approaches 0 exist? Well, this time, from the right-hand side, the limit is negative 2. So we can say the right-hand limit of f of x, so as x approaches 0 from the right-hand side, must be equal to negative 2. Meanwhile, the left-hand limit is approaching 0. The limit of f of x as x approaches 0 from the left-hand side is equal to 0. They are different, so no. The limit does not exist because the left-hand limit and the right-hand limit are different. Okay? Alright, that's it for this video.